Hi neighbors, how's it going? How all y'all doing? We're gonna be doing a set 9 Overdress tier list. DRAGONTREE has started to invade. The invasion is here. Grifugila is here. And we're gonna see how the meta is gonna shape up, possibly during the BSF season, the BCS season later on this year. And there's also still BRO to look forward to as well. This is gonna be kind of intense to see how some of these decks shape up and how they do. So we're gonna be starting off from left to right. No discernible outcome. My my list, my rules. I will give reasons. So my first and foremost rule of any time that I put any of these in a tier list is as follows. The reason that it's either in S tier, the fact that it only needs 1 card to enable itself to 2 cards as a minimum to enable itself for the deck to function. 3 cards or higher puts it lower on the tier list for the deck to function with it, especially decks that require a whole lot of orders to work with it. But if the orders can assert themselves and you only quite literally need just like 1 more for your deck to work, then that's fine. But if you need multiple of orders to be able to do your thing in your combo that you're looking for, then it goes down the list. Also goes for units as well, not just orders. So we have Alestial. Alestial, with the set 3 lyrical support that it's gotten, is still kind of struggling to keep up. It does have a really nice win condition now, being able to focus on lowering your opponent's attack power on the defensive turn, but it does feel a little bit weaker. Does still feel a little bit weaker overall than most of the other lyrical archetypes you could be playing, like Cannon, Lucrezia, even Kyrie. You know, any of those decks right now is still going to be tough for the deck to deal with. So I will still put it in C for now, that you can possibly beat any of the other decks around it in B or D tier, but it tends to lose a lot more against the E tier meta decks. Then we have Magnus, the base boy Magnus. A lot of people will probably say, hey, put him in A, but I feel like he's B right now. He's not really been putting up too much numbers. The deck does have a lot of extra consistency, especially once some of the support cards that has gotten in set 8 and in set 6. But right now it's not really found a home yet in the meta, but you could possibly slot this into a team comp with your friends, and this can get rid of a lot of the Eva cards. A lot of the Upskidades. It can mow down some matchups that force your opponent to switch out some of the rear guards. I still think it suffers from the issue that it can tend to lose to itself, especially if you don't hit 15 threshold on time, and swirlers can gatekeep the strength of this deck by a lot, which a lot of people are going to have a hard time. It's been recently reprinted in set 9, so you can pick up some of your copies of Swirler yourself, but it's gatekept by Swirler a whole lot. You can do without it, but, you know, it's tough. Then we have ourselves another base boy too as well. How do we feel about him? I feel he also goes into B as well. He can punish and beat a lot of archetypes, especially going first. And if you play him in a team comp, you can reliably be assured that it will always do the thing that it's meant to do. But sadly enough, he tends to fall to the wayside in solos a whole lot, because he gets preyed on by a lot of the more aggressive decks that can play a grade 2 game really aggressively. A lot of decks nowadays are playing very low to the ground, meaning that they're playing a lot extra grade 1s, a lot less grade 3s. So the grade 3 turn usually is sometimes the pop-off turn initially, and a deck having to keep up with that type of pressure playing a grade 4 oriented deck can have a hard time. So I put it in B right now. So in teams, I think it's higher, possibly an A, but right now in solos, I think it's relatively B, and it can suffer from a lot of issues on its own. So then we have Bavasagra. Bavasagra, I think her as an archetype, she falls prey to decks like Eva, but I think she does really well into decks like Juthenberg. I want to put her higher in A. I will put her higher in B for now. See, these are like all based B decks, Bavasagra, Bastion, and then Magnus, but she suffers from not finding her weapons on time, even though with the new support that she's gotten set 7 was, and also now just recently set 9, should allow her to be able to recycle some of the units, allowing her to use the grade 2 that Superior calls itself when you equip an arm, but she still has the issue of not being able to find the arms on her first grade to turn efficiently and as fast as possible. Then we have Unrivaled Bruce. Again, that's another deck. I possibly might be underestimating it. Philip from Top Deck Heroes probably would tell me, no, this deck is based. It should be here, possibly. But I will still preface this that I think you need to kind of sit 3 to 4 turns before you pop off with this deck. Before you can do anything, and you need to have exactly 6 cards to 7 cards. 6 to 7 cards to combo kill your opponent, and it needs to be specifically 2 copies of Swirler, 1 to 2 copies of Eden. You might be playing the Quenlu variant, or maybe not. Or Megan, the one that gets plus 10k on Final Rush. And then there's also maybe some 1 or 2 of the orders that say, you know, either Superior Call, Full Dive, or Pandemonium. See, that's a lot of combinations of cards that you need specifically have. And that's tough. Then we have Clarissa. Clarissa, unexpectedly, I think she's a little higher than Celestial for me, because Clarissa preys on a bunch of decks that establish a board. So if you're playing against something like Bavs, or you're playing something against something like Bastion, it can be pretty devastating to play against, actually. I would want to put it in B, to be honest. I think I'll put it in B, but it suffers from a lot of the same issues. A lot of these are build-a-board decks, right? You build your board, you hope it sticks, you hope your opponent doesn't punish you for it, and then you get punished, and you're like, well, darn. I feel bad for playing the game. Overlord, A tier, it does things, it shows up, pays its taxes, and it leaves. Eugene, S, obviously. I mean, bruh. No, I'm sorry. This guy has gotten infinite amount of support. I think it does beat some people. It does prey on decks that aren't resistant removal, but playing against something like Eva, it still suffers from the fact that it gets pressured by a lot of opponents very quickly, and you need to have key pieces for retiring your opponent's stuff. Eva, she is quite literally one of the strongest decks, if not the strongest deck right now that we have out at the moment. Filthy Rosa, a lot of extra ghost support hopefully might make her a whole lot better, but she's kind of low on support right now. She's also a build-a-board sort of deck, but she needs a little bit less in comparison to some of the other stuff. Okay, so then we also have Flagberg. A lot of people put it a lot lower in B. I think it's actually a relatively stronger deck than a lot of people give it credit for. The thing is, it falls to the wayside when you get hit with defensive triggers. It sucks if the defensive triggers get hit against you, and if you don't find your inlet posters. It loses to those things. So I will put it right now leading B, possibly shifting into A. I think it's a B plus sort of deck that I wouldn't be surprised that if it tops a tournament or two, because it's very aggressive. It plays the same game plan, but it plays a grade 3 that you need to play to make it work, which is Inlet Pulse. You have to play Inlet Pulse. You can play it without it, but I don't agree with that. Then we have Mimi here, a restanding archetype. I will put it into B, since it plays a lot of the very core good cards that Friends play, since it's a friendship deck itself. It also is a restanding Vanguard, so you can play cards like Yuika, Melty. It's very surprising that I actually know some of these cards myself now, because I've been playing a little bit of Lyrical myself. It's a very fun. Lyrical's pretty fun as a nation, to be honest. So I give it a try to anybody who wants to give a new nation a go. Having a restanding Vanguard can be kind of nice, and you don't need that much resources to get a restanding to go off. So I think it's okay, but again, it's a build-a-board deck, so you gotta kind of hope that some of your regard stays. Gravidia, I put it A still. This deck has not really changed since the dawn of time. And all the Nordlinger support that it's gotten has not been all the best. You can play a little bit of a lower meteor ratio right now, but it's just really good to serve as an anti-meta deck. It is a spot check against decks that want to build a board and try to keep the board together, and if you don't have any form of recursion when they nuke you, you'll get run over really hard by Nordlinger here. She's gonna completely dominate you. Then we have Greed On. A lot of people have been hyping up Greed On recently, due to the fact that you have the new promo card right now. Zito, not Zito, it was the other one, the other bunny, the one that calls itself from Soul. I keep on forgetting its name. That calls itself from Soul, even though I don't really think that build right now is that good, because you don't soul charge that much. Outside of like soul charging for your board, but you don't have that much raw soul charge. Unless you hit Dofund. But I meant like before Dofund. Because there's some times when you're playing into certain matchups, you can fall either prey to drawing mostly only triggers or drawing pieces and not having shield value, which can hurt Greed On a whole lot, and it depends on what version of Greed On you're playing. Rearguard centric build that focuses on the grade 1 Bubetsu, or you play the Vanguard centric build that focuses on Goemon from the Ride Line, the one that gives guard restrict. If you focus around those aspects, it changes the dynamic of how the deck plays out. I think if you go with like Dofund as a rear guard, Bubetsu to superior call, I feel like your stealing of your deck can be increased by a lot, but your restanding potential can be lowered by a lot. But you can't really do both at the same time, because then it feels weaker of both parts. I will put top of B ahead of Flatberg by a bit, but not much though, because there are moments where either can beat each other. In a team setting, I think it's relatively high. I don't know if it can carry itself against matchups like Chronojet. I've had a teammate who did have a little bit of struggling against it and didn't do that well into it, but that was more that his build wasn't really catered or fine-tuned to that matchup really. So you couldn't really farm that much cards against that matchup, and Jet can kind of send some of its resources back and etc, etc. It's a very difficult deck to deal with, Jet. Then we have Harriet? Powerful mechanic. Sadly enough, even though with the newer support that she's gotten currently in Lyrical Set 3, she still falls behind of having the issues of not being able to Soul Blast. Herminia, thank you so much, Jazz. She has an issue of not being able to Soul Blast efficiently, or you're not getting a whole lot of resources for Soul Blasting. A whole lot, sadly. It's okay. It can quad drive, but you need to go through a bunch of hoops and bounds for it. Yeah, it does. It does do a quad drive. Because your rear guard gets a drive check, yes. And it can potentially restand, yeah. But it still suffers from the issue of you need a bunch of resources to be used out of your soul, and you need to be staying on the board for you to be able to keep on reusing all of your effects and added bonuses, sadly. Like, it just uses a bunch of resources for no reason, but you have to use it because that's your mechanic, right? And the payoff for it is not that high, sadly. And now we have Hexorb. Hexorb right now playing into everything, like Chronojet, into Eva, into a lot of those matchups. To be very honest, I still think she's dog. She is dog water. People who could win with his deck currently in set 9 probably are people like me who quite literally don't like themselves right now, and they want to play they just want to feel something, and so they play this deck to feel something. Hurt. No, I'm joking. But it suffers a lot. You'll have moments where you pop off super hard against your opponent and you're like, oh my god, this is the best deck ever, dude. And then you're playing against actually good players, and then they punish you because you realize half your turn costs 3 CB. And then you're like, ah, man. I beat people that to the past me. I mean, that's the point. Your deck should do that. No, we're talking about old Hexa. This is vanilla Hexa. This is set 9 Hexa right now. This is all set 9 stuff. Potential future Hexa, she could possibly be bumped up to like B or C tier, or maybe even A, if she pans like pan through some of my testing I'm going to be having with her. Yeah, yeah, it's doo-doo. It's currently doo-doo butt cheeks, doo-doo water. It is not a good archetype. Kyrie. Same issue. She's currently in B. She's possibly an A tier deck, but she suffers from being completely ruffle stomped by a bunch of different archetypes that have a very good grade 2 turn against her. So she she gets completely rolled sometimes. Then we have Chaos. I have not seen a lot of people play Chaos, but people have been hyping up this deck to be the next second coming Messiah here. I haven't seen it do all too well yet, but in theory, a lot of the support cards would suggest that it would be a relatively A tier deck, but I haven't seen it put up the numbers for it as yet. Unironically, from some of the testing that I've gotten, is that playing Chaos with a decent amount of 3 to 4 out sometimes have panned out better to get the singleton effect than pure singleton, which is funny. It's really good this meta? I would think so. There's a lot more grade 2s. Your mechanic can retire a rearguard for your opponent. It can blow up some rearguards for your opponents. But if you're playing into something like up here, they don't really care what happens to their rearguards. You're kind of just doing it for yourself. I think it'd be good into like some of the other archetypes that needs to keep particular units on that board. It says most people wait till turn 3 for some reason. Just slam cards and yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, it's possibly, I don't know if it's better than Greed on Daddy over here, but some of these archetypes play very aggressively early, and I would think Greed on should play aggressively early, and these also play aggressively early as well, except for Nordlinger. I think she tends to play a little bit passively unless you're playing the token, or you're playing around the token for the one turn. Yeah, and Overlord already plays aggressively since they play a lot of grade 2s and stuff. Then we have Lorena Roll. God, I feel so sad for her. Lorena Roll, I'll put her to the bottom of B. I want to actually put her in C, but I feel like I'll probably get hit with a bunch of very angry comments that'll tell me I don't know anything about anything. But she's hurting. She's not doing too hot right now. She has some really good defensive turns, but she is a grade 3 deck that plays like a grade 4 deck. You don't need a bigger board to play her though. So that's it. There's gonna be a lot of B tier decks, because a lot of the decks in Vanguard nowadays in Overdress, they can beat any of these decks in the lower classes, can beat any of the decks in the higher classes. I'm just putting them in the category that I feel that these decks should have a either 60-40 or 50-50 matchup against certain archetypes, right? And this is like the 60-40 threshold that more times than not, the higher tier decks will beat that sort of thing. Alright, and now we have Magnolia. Unironically, no cap. I think Magnolia is actually pretty good again. Might be because of Indent, but it's also due to the fact that they're also playing a grade 2 Bison that can attack your opponent's front row, and I think that is kind of disgusting. Being able to pressure your opponent's front row while also pushing pressure and attack damage against them, it's kind of nutty. So it's a grade 4 deck that plays like a grade 3 deck, which is nice. And especially if your opponent is playing very aggressive in the early game against you, you can match them and push ahead of them, because then you can be like, okay, I'ma just play my grade 2s out that I'm playing over 12 of, and you push me to like 2 or 3 damage. I go into Magnolia, Inlet, Bison or something, and you have 4 attacks, and you have a Bison attacking their front row while they're drawing 2 cards while doing it. I think that's really strong for an archetype to do. MLB, even with the grade 2, there's a grade 1 promo that came out recently that does give you a way of being able to do multi-attack with MLB. So you do need a little less resources in comparison to some of the older things. I don't know myself whether or not the 2k difference putting you to 15k does help a whole lot, because oftentimes you still need to guard for 20 to 25k shield, even being 15. But I'll put it next to Lorena roll because I am actually of the ideology that if you play the promo, it makes the deck a lot stronger. If you don't have it or don't own it, it goes to the bottom. Yeah, you can make some really solid plays with the new promo that came out. It's a great one that says you can choose your Blaster Blade and your Blaster Dark from your soul, and you can Superior Call them. And if your opponent's grade 3 or greater, it gives your grade 2's boost. Yeah, it's really good. But if the fact that the whole archetype is gate kept by PRs, it's a little jarring, you know what I mean? It's a little iffy. And then we have Nirvana. I'm gonna put it above Bruce. I'm gonna put it above Bruce, and I'll keep it a buck with you. I don't think most of the grade 4s here made the cut, to be honest, but I'll put Bavs above. I'll put Bavs above, Nirvana under her. Yeah, I think it's stronger than Bastion overall. Nirvana, you can't really go wrong. It's a really solid deck. Does what it needs to do. You have Esperidia. If you get to Esperidia, you're fine, right? It's kind of the goal with the deck, but you need to survive that long to get to it. And the meta is right now is like super aggressive. All right, I will put Orphist in A, only for the fact that it's an anti-meta choice. It's very specific to how you build it. So you need to build it specifically to counter Jet and Ava. And you play it like lower to the ground in comparison to the other decks as well. You need to basically forget or don't think or consider about having 4 orders in your order zone anymore. If you get there, you get there. That's kind of the idea. Then we have PBO, also promo issue. I think it's a lot stronger now. But promo issue still is a thing. Rorowa. Unironically, I think Rorowa is really, really good. It's like really good. I actually want to put it in A, but I think that would be too presumptuous of me. Okay, then we also have Madame Grade 4 herself, leading the way, leading the charge. She is a gatekeeper deck. You think the Grade 2 that we've gotten recently? Yeah, possibly, yeah. Then we also have Tamayura. We're going to be slotting a lot of... Then we also have Tamayura. I think Tamayura is a lot stronger than people give it credit for. You have Broken Toys, which was a relatively expensive promo, but I think it's now a lot cheaper now. I'll put it next to Rorowa. I think they're relatively comparable in strength. Then we have here, even with the newest iteration of Thiegra, I don't feel like she's really done too much. I don't think she's that strong right now. Feels like she's still missing something. She could possibly beat some people, but like half the time she loses to herself. Because her Persona Ride engine, if you don't find the exact Persona Ride you need on time, but she needs a lot more piece in comparison to some of the other stuff up here. Like way more so. Like I know she's strong, she could possibly beat people, but for set 9 right now, it's not it. It's not it. For me at least, from what I've played against her, it's not it. I've played with her, played against her. No. Just no. When your waifus are low tier, feels good, man. I'm sorry, Pew Pew, but it's just a realistic scenario. It's kind of how we're sitting right now. And then we have Willista, also Zorga, B tier. I feel like it's better in BCS. It's better in BSFs with friends. I think it's better that way because then Zorga has some relatively bad matchups, especially like grade 2 gaming, etc. Like Zorga needs to kind of high roll a little bit to get a good grade 2 game going. But outside of that, like going into grade 3, and if it survives past the grade 3 turn, it's very tough. With mass stuff, that's set 10. This is set 9. This is both. I'll put them next to each other because, to be very honest, I don't really think that there's much of a difference between them. That's just me, though. And then we have Yeva. She is kind of copium at the moment. She is booty cheeks. Without her newest support that she's going to be getting in set 10, she's completely booty cheeks right now. Still. Also here with her. I don't think she's that good here. Yeva's up and down. Yeva's just not it. Then we also have, yeah, it just has no counter charge. Like, I think she's a little bit better. But she has like a restanding thing. She has a restanding rear guard going on, and she can be combined with inlet pulses now. I think I'll put her next to Zorga. I think she's actually a little bit stronger than I'm giving her credit for. Then we have Youthberg, still S tier. Like, recently, it has been losing a lot to like a bunch of these other decks at the moment that can mold your front row, because then you're only left with like a Vanguard swing. And you're gonna eventually run out of rear guards in that deck, since you only really playing a bunch of grade 3s, like 12 grade 3s or so. And it falls prey to Jet. So I would probably put it into A to be realistic with you, but I think it's still a really good deck into everything else. Then we got Heroes that recently got support this set. I don't know how good they are. I am gonna put them, because we have a Robust. And Robust is a grade 3 that can get extra copies of your bases out of your deck. So if you at least have 2, you play your Robust, you can search to the others. Or you can get a Persona Ride out of your deck, but the base already gets a Persona Ride for you, so you don't really need it, right? But I will put it at the bottom of B for now. You're surprised that Greedon's in B tier? Greedon's good. I thought Greedon, I think most people, I guess you would say you put it into A. But Europe doesn't play Greedon like that. I think they play Greedon a little bit more Vanguard-centric, whereas the meta is more Rearguard-centric. And Greedon doesn't do that well into Rearguard strategies. But Greedon's really good still, though. Then we have Jejuled. Jejuled is another deck as well that tends to lose to itself a lot. Has issues of creating pressure, putting pressure on the board. It's overall a relatively okay deck. Swirler increases the ceiling by a little bit. You also have the new grade 1 rare that chooses 2 cards from your drop zone that adds them to your soul for you. So you could play around that instead of playing Falcate Cat. But I still feel that Jejuled still suffers from issues of just not finding stuff you need. Not being able to do the thing you need to do. They play Greedon, not greedily. Yeah. Which is funny, right? You're playing a greedy deck, but you don't play it as greedy as you should, sort of thing. Yeah, Jejuled is, it's a little tough. I'll put it next to Heroes, because both of them are decks that, like, if you hit the right pieces on time, you pop the hell off. You filter, like, 15 million cards from your deck. But then if you don't see any of those cards, it feels so bad to play with. And that's kind of where, like, a lot of these decks fall into, right? From MLB to Greedon, to Jejuled, it just all feels like that. If this doesn't see their promo, this one doesn't see its promo. If either of these don't see their orders, if this doesn't see its inlet or the restanding rearguard unit, if this doesn't see like 2 bases or higher, or this doesn't see like anything, it hurts. It hurts a lot. Easy, add a Bruce. Yes, let me see if I can find my Bruce in my 41 card deck. Alright, I thank you. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna see it. You don't need to play Bruce anymore. It's relatively easy to get to the 4th threshold nowadays. Then we have Willista. People been hyping up Willista a whole lot. It's been making the rounds. I actually think it's a very strong contender. Especially 41 cards. What is this? Yu-Gi-Oh? Oh, because So, what a lot of people I never really counted before is your deck. You're technically playing with 41 cards in your deck because you're drawing cards for your hand. So you're drawing 5 cards, and then you're drawing for turn, which makes it 6, right? But your opening is 5, and then there's 4 cards from your ride line out of your deck. So 46, so you're going to 41. And you're drawing for turn, you're going to 40. And then you're drawing your starter, you're going to 39, and then etc, etc, etc. So you're playing with a lower deck count than you would think. You're popping up for locals. If your friend wants to sort for Netherlands BSF, shoot me a DM on Discord. No, you shoot me a DM. You do. You'll do that. But they'll need another one. Then we have Grade 3 Bruce. I personally think it's a little bit stronger than Grade 4 Bruce. To be fair with you, bro. I think it's personally stronger than Grade 4 Bruce right now. I'll actually swap their places. I'll do it like this. Alright, then we got Shutendoji. Shutendoji-sama. I've seen some people make rounds with this deck, but I don't really think that this deck is that strong, sadly. And I'll do the same thing for Lukia. She can beat people. But she's... no. She needs a very specific order to get her 4th attack off. You get to draw some cards, but then you're falling behind in comparison to a whole lot of other units in what they're doing. I don't really agree with that. Okay, and then we have Arakite. A lot of people might not agree with this. I think Arakite is possibly one of the strongest budget decks that I've ever come across. I will put it in A tier because that's how, like, this is a really good deck. This plays some of the same tools that Eva does, and it's like way more aggressive. It's super consistent. It's possibly like one of the most consistent decks I've ever come across. Maybe not more consistent than ever, but man, bro, little bro, dear God, you got your teeth kicked in so easily against that deck. Then we have Minerva up there. We have Maelstrom, Copium. I don't know anything decks that good. Then we have Gram Grace, even with the new promo, getting extra drop checks and stuff. It's going to sit here for a bit until we see what the new 2 cards that it's getting in its trial deck is going to be. Then we have Jet up here, Lucretia up here, then this. Unironically, I think Michu is pretty good. I think Michu is underestimated. Michu can play a decent Grade 2 game. The Grade 3 orders, you can actually put them into play from your hand on your Grade 1 and Grade 2 turns. You get actually 2 extra draws, plus a Melty draw. Plus you get to take a look at your stack with Overeating. Plus you get an extra Vanguard attack, plus taxes, plus, you know. Kyoka, sadly, she needs more magazines to make anything work. I'm not going to put this one in, but she would also be another S tier deck as well if she existed, but she does not exist, sadly. So we have Yo Asakura, or most of the Shaman King stuff. Unironically, I think his rival is a little bit better now. What's his name again? God. The one with Basson. I think his rival is a little bit better than Yo right now. Like a restanding Vanguard is a little... Like, I know Yo is good, but I think the other one is a bit better at the moment. With a... Taoren, yes. I think Taoren is stronger than Yo right now. So Yo by himself is strong. So B. Like a high tier is a B, possibly. But I feel with how the meta is shifting, I feel he's a little bit weaker. And a little bit more susceptible, because if he doesn't see Ana, he gets bullied. And Taoren only needs Joko, really. Joko and Mick. Yeah, Rearguard removal is like super important at the moment. But it does lose to Eva though, because you can't really target it, can't really do anything against their Rearguard stuff. But if you play against any of the other stuff, that's fine. It's just Eva is something you'll need to contend with if you're playing Tower Ren. And this guy, I don't remember him. I can't remember him, but I remember him making a rounds and topping a decent amount of tournaments, and a lot of his Rearguard support does allow you to manipulate the bind zones and stuff. So I think being able to pressure your opponent with that angle. He's not out this one? I thought he was out already, but if he's not out yet, then we leave him out of the list. And we have Unica. Unica suffers from the same Jejul issue. I don't really think that she's that strong right now either. Then we have Vehemence. Vehemence Bruce, I think, is A, possibly ahead of Orphis, under Nordlinger, because Nordlinger preys on Rearguard effects a whole lot. And this is what we're going for. Avantgarda. Avantgarda, currently B. It's a restanding Vanguard, but it does need a lot of moving parts for it to do so. Plays like a grade 4 deck that runs like a grade 3. Strong though. Overall strong. Then we have Messiah, that's currently not out yet. There's also not Griffin Gila here. The main boy himself, really? No Griffin Gila here? But in Griffin Gila, I'd probably put in D. I possibly put the token strategies and being able to use like Malice and stuff for it, it's really nice. I want to put it like close to where Roa is, but I don't think it's stronger than Roa right now. I possibly will have to lose to this deck a couple of times to like really recognize the strength and power. But I'll put it in the lower parts of B for now. Is there any changes we want to make? Willis is super strong. Unironically, super strong. Set 10 just gets stronger, a lot more support. Operating is going to be becoming so much easier, and reducing your opponent's power while also getting power, while retiring the rear guards and drawing cards and calling units, and is really strong in the archetype. Prisoning your opponent's cards does get around Eva's mechanic a little bit of not being able to retire stuff, but sadly enough, Eva does build a decent amount of soul, so that counters it by a whole lot, and it suffers from an issue of it being a grade 3 deck. Very easy to play, a grade 4 deck, very easy to play around with. Your opponent don't have to commit too much. Half a line maybe. You can't play around both products too. Yeah, exactly, you can't play around the products. They're just there. Yeah, exactly, you just happily draw. It's just such a good archetype. Kind of reminds me of what like Bafasagara could have been, sort of thing. You know what I mean? Oh, the Gelma? Oh yeah, I remember you telling me that. Yeah, the promo archetype, the promo deck. It's not here sadly on this list. It's not been fully updated. But we'll probably put like a small up here. That deck is really strong too. I possibly put that next to Willista or next to Michu, possibly. Like somewhere around between A or B. If it's that strong as you consider it to be, yes, definitely. Any other changes here? Chaos, Flagberg, Roroa, and again, I'll preface this again. Any of these decks in B, C, or even D could possibly beat the other decks in all the other tiers as well, but it's few and far between. But that being said, be awesome, stay awesome, have a wonderful day. Thank y'all for tuning in and stopping on by. This has been this iteration of Tier List for Set 9.